1,001 Ways to Live Without Working and 1,001 Ways to Beat the Draft. Our next reader wrote 1,001 Ways to Eat a Knish. I now present Thelma Blitz.
Okay, I'd like to congratulate Tuli on surviving being dead for an entire year and not complaining. All right. I wrote at least I began to write 1,001 ways, 1,001 things to remember when remembering Tuli. But you're lucky that I didn't finish this piece and I only have 100 that you have to listen to. Okay, number 1. He didn't jump off the Brooklyn Bridge like it said in Howl. He jumped off the Manhattan Bridge and was forever bugged by people. We don't have this here. All right. He was forever bugged by people who remembered him for that instead of his life of activism. 2. He didn't walk away unharmed like Ginsberg said. He wound up in a hospital with a back injury. Then his mother put him in Bellevue. 3. After that, he opposed all bridge jumps and suicidal behavior, even to the point of refusing to sign a living will. 4. He made the beat scene, but grew to believe that radical politics were more important than poetry and jazz. 5. He was a Zionist during Hitler, but later came to oppose the nation of Israel, disliking its neighborhood bully attitude in the Middle East. 6. He called himself a utopian socialist and a pacifist anarchist Bolshevik. 7. Brook Farm was at one time Tuli's model of utopia. 8. The last song Tuli ever wrote was called Shitopia, written in the village nursing home, May 9, 2009, with Tim McCarthy, and recorded by him. Indeed, that nursing home was a shitopia. He was born a Jew, liked Jewish food, Jewish humor, borrowed Yiddish tunes. He was named Norman in English, Naphtali in Hebrew, which he shortened to Tulia or Tuli. Yiddish was his mother tongue. 12, in later years, he talked softly to himself in Yiddish before going to sleep. He was kicked out of Hebrew school for disputing the religious explanation of the parting of the Red Sea in Exodus. He became a militant agnostic. 11, he was radicalized very young. 13, I don't know what happened to 12. Microsoft Word didn't give it to me. This was an automatic numbering. 13, he wrote poems and short stories in college and in his youth. 14, he graduated from Brooklyn College in 1944 with studies in sociology and psychology. 15, he said he thought that studying psychology would end his mental suffering, but it didn't. 16, his college nickname to his friends was the Arab. 17, he won an amateur talent show as a child by just being cute and tapping his foot.
Thelma.
18.
Lower your paper, Thelma.
What? Oh, okay.
Couldn't see your face.
See it. 16. 18. All right. I can't see it. He published 3 books with Sylvia Top of childhood pictures of the famous and one of their childhood creations. 19, he played a cop in Richard Pryor's Dynamite Chicken. 20, he had his own radical theater company with Lannis Kenfield, Sylvia Top, and others called The Revolting Theater. 21, he played God in the patriarch Abraham in Michael Hirsch's Voulez-vous coucher avec God. 22, he said this was the worst movie ever made. 23, many would agree. 24, he was a husband. 25, he was a father. 26, he was a divorcee. 27, he was a husband again. 28, he was a father again. 29, he was a cuckold. 30, he was a lover. 31, he was a member of the League for Sexual Freedom. 32, he was a disciple of Wilhelm Reich, owner of an organ box. 33, he was a founding Fug together with Ed Sanders and Ken Weaver. 34, he wrote the most memorable songs of the Fugs, Nothing, Kill for Peace, CIA Man, Morning, Morning, and lots of others. 35, he wrote a still unpublished novel about the Fugs called The Fucks, and it was rawer than the Fugs, maybe too raw to publish. 36, he read the Fucks in several installations on his public access show in the 90s. 37, he had a talking penis. You probably wonder what it said, or maybe you could imagine. 38, he once showed up naked at a girlfriend's door. 39, he didn't wear underpants and vehemently opposed the wearing of them in general. 40, he said, I must have fucked 100 women and I loved them all. 41, his favorite sentimental love song was The Way We Were, sung by Barbra Streisand. 42, he wrote 1001 Ways to Make Love. 43, he lived to 86 to be the world's oldest rock star. 44, he called life's ending leaving the planet. 45, he was a war resistor. 46, he even opposed competitive sports as if they were a form of war. Okay. 47, he didn't think there should be a world where some are winners, some are losers, and the winners beat the losers. 48, he beat the World War II draft, convincing the draft board psychiatrist he was crazy enough for a 4F. 29, what's this? 49. I don't know, the numbering went crazy here. He gave an anti-US policy in Vietnam lecture at a high school that was so incendiary the school pulled a fire drill to stop him. All right, 50. Something wrong with the numbering here. His dying words were murderers. They were all murderers. Repeated like a mantra, usually referred to US presidents. 31, he wrote 1001 Ways to Beat the Draft. 32, I don't know, the numbering is wrong here. So ignore it. To his dismay, the publisher pulped copies of his book that didn't sell. 53, he dramatized a battle-crazed military beast in the movies WR, Mysteries of the Organism, and Raw Zones. 34, someone put out a button that said, Tuli Kupferberg, the second coming. Tuli walked away from anyone who wore it. 59, Tuli issued a button that read, impeach the president, generic. 60, Nobody for President was one of his favorite songs. 57, I don't know what the number is. All right, I'll just read whatever number Microsoft Word gave me. All right, for the Fugs album, first album, he wrote Kill for Peace. For the Fugs' final CD, Part 2, he wrote Backward Jewish Soldiers.
Which is also in the last album.
Yeah, it's also in the last album. I have it on CD that I gave to Sparrow. Yeah, you have a copy of it here if you want to play it. He was usually an intelligible poet. If not, he would explain obscure references. He defined poetry as excited speech. He published poetry in his own birth press volumes in the 50s and published an early anthology called Snow Job. Right, I'm number 43 here. It was a word coiner, coined the word parasong, new lyrics to familiar tunes. 44, he published several issues of Listen to the Mockingbird, collection of often topical parasongs. 45, Tuli was a pioneer producer in public access television. 46, he was a regular guest on the Coco Crystal If I Can't Dance, You Can Keep Your Revolution show. 47, he sung topical parasongs with her. 48, his first show with Lanny Kenfield was called Theater of the Real. 49, His second was called Revolting News, produced with Norman Savitt. 50, Tuli interviewed authors and poets, discussed, discoursed about presidents, showed cartoons and collages, sang power songs and more power songs. 51, guests were a who's who of the left, like Alex Coburn, George Seldes, Peter Lamborn Wilson, Bertel Ullman, artists such as Eric Drucker and Jeffrey Lewis, activists like Robert Lederman for street artists and Deborah Weil for imprisoned Israeli whistleblower Mordechai Benunu. 52, I'm carrying it on today with archival shows and new ones as well. 53, Tuli loved old books, dollar books at the Strand, housing work, used book cafe. 54, he never came back from a walk without some books he bought on the street, which he carried in a book bag on his back up 5 flights of stairs. 55, he collected songbooks and books about Karl Marx. 56, his loft looked like a library. 57, he was once a medical librarian at the Jewish Chronic Disease Hospital in Brooklyn. 58, he subscribed to a periodical called the Mortality and Morbidity Report, and also to Paranoia. Okay, 59. He loved the color yellow, shunned the color black. He wore a coat of many colors and brightly colored caps. 61, he was a vegetarian. It started with a Nathan's hot dog he realized had been a live cow. 62, dinner was sometimes a potato and some broccoli. 63, chocolate ice cream, cheesecake, and full-fat dairy probably wound up in blocked arteries. 64, he wore canvas shoes, but sometimes a leather belt. When questioned about it, he answered, "We do the best we can." 65, he harassed random cigarette smokers on the street with cancer death stories. 66, he called Philip Morris drug kingpins and held the tobacco companies responsible for all the early death and poor health of smokers. 67, he wrote a power song called Masters of Nicotine, to Dylan's Masters of War. 68, he kept tuned into the news. 69, he said, every day same thing happens to different people. 70, let's see who got killed today, he would say when turning on the news. 71, he wrote news poems, made news collages, cartoons, and sang the news in power songs. 72, the BBC News was his favorite news source, also the New York Times, the best paper of its times, Democracy Now!, Calamity Amy, he called her, and Counterpunch. 73, Alex Coburn was his favorite journalist. 74, Howard Zinn was his favorite historian, especially his People's History of the United States. 75, though he recited a litany of names for marijuana on a Fugs LP, he avoided mind-altering drugs after a bad trip in Chicago. 76, in his final days, they gave him psychoactive pharmaceuticals, whose names he couldn't remember, and they seemed to make him more erratic. 77, he wrote 1,001 Ways to Live Without Working. 78, Ask Women to Pay for You seemed to be his favorite. 79, someone called him a low-maintenance gigolo. 80, he preferred to give things away rather than to sell them. 81, he liked to take long walks. 82, he liked to feed sparrows in the park. Central Park, Bowery Park, little urban parks surrounded by traffic. 83, he loved London and Toronto. He thought Canada had a saner society than the US and dreamed of moving there. 84, he was an urban gardener, planting seeds of avocado, tomato, and squash in window boxes and watered them diligently and proudly watched them grow and flower. 85, Tuli opposed the killing of insects, forbade it in his home, even though many came to his garden and ate his woolen jackets. 86, he put out food for the mice next to the garbage pail. He thought they were cute. 87, he collected books about Karl Marx and knew every detail about his life. 88, he was going to write a play with Alex Coburn called Marx-a-Poppin'. 89, Tuli loved his mother but didn't get along with his father. 90, Tuli loved the boat pond in Central Park. 91, in the 60s he thought there would be a people's revolution, but later admitted it failed because the people didn't want to make it. The police and the soldiers would have to cooperate, just the ones who hated hippies. That's right, that's why it didn't happen. 92, he said that Russia never had a true communism, rather a state capitalism. 93, on Saturday nights, Tuli listened to the Danny Style show, The Vicar of Vintage Vinyl, music of the 30s and 40s, music of his youth. We danced to it. 94, he listened to the Oscar Brandt Folk Song Festival. Oscar Brandt was his chemistry lab partner at Brooklyn College. 95, Tuli remembered Oscar would sometimes fudge his data. Oscar is still alive. If you're out there, Oscar, Tuli remembered. 96, Tuli liked to hang at the Bowery Poetry Club, leaving his collages and creations for free for people to take. 97, he'd walk to the east side from Soho, stopping at the Radical Bluestocking bookstore and Yona Schimmel's Canistry. 98, he used to frequent Revolution Books, where he left his art prints for sale on consignment, but 40 of them vanished, and the comrades never offered him any recompense. He didn't press the matter because he thought they were doing good things in the world, but never went back there. We'll look for them, was all they could say about the missing prints. 99, he did business on a handshake, never asked for receipts, for they would show mistrust. 100, he would rather give things away than sell them. 101, if he ever had any money, he gave it away quickly. 102, he never missed a beggar. 103, he liked to pose for pictures with his hand out. We're all beggars for something, he said. 104, the Argosy, the Strand, Housing Works, Used Books Cafe, Public Library Sales, Nudell Books, and the endless street table bouquinistes were Tuli's favorite places to browse. 105, if Tuli thought one of his books should be in the library, he brought it there and placed it on the shelf. He called that anarchist book distribution. He gave away a lot of books. He also put them in the places where the free newspapers are distributed. Okay, 107, the Czech satire, The Good Soldier Schweig, was a favorite book. 108, Edward Fitzgerald's translation of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam was a favorite poem. 109, Tuli introduced me to Britcoms like Rowan Atkinson's Blackadder. 110, Tuli liked vintage broad humor. The Three Stooges, the Marx Brothers. 111, his first internet password, his secret name for himself, was Schmucko Marx. 112, his email address was tulio@verizon.net, recalling 2 zeros he never forgot he received in high school, one for form, the other for content. 113, even better, his first email address was tuli@escape.com, and he would tell people, remember, you can't escape Tuli. 114, no, I guess we can.